was the worst day ever. This video, I do want to talk about what it was like being, I don't know if you guys would consider this being a teen mom, but what it was like being a young mom with having a baby that was premature and then having another baby that got burned from her inner stomach all the way to her inner thighs, and also what it was like being a mom with a daughter who got seizures, and to top it all off, what it was like to getting and being diagnosed with Bell's palsy. So I got pregnant when I was 18. I had my oldest when I was 19. So she had broken my water and we were at a party and I was like, oh great, I constantly need to go to the bathroom. So I didn't know by that time that my water had broken. So when I went to the bathroom, only like 2 little drips would come out and I'm like, oh, false alarm, no bathroom. And it would keep happening constantly and constantly. And I told my mom and I was like, Mom, what do I do? Nothing's happening, blah, blah, blah. And she tells me, she's like, sit down on this chair, give it 5 minutes, and then get up and we'll see what happens. And I was like, okay. So I sat down on the chair. 5 minutes later, I get up and it was full of water, knowing or leading to my water breaking. So then I get to the hospital. At this point, I'm not even full term yet. I was about 30 weeks pregnant. We get to the hospital. They did not want to put me on any meds. They did not want to start my contractions due to her being early. I was still pregnant at this time. I was still pregnant because they didn't want me to have her yet. So we were at the hospital for 2 days, just them monitoring me. I had those straps on my belly. And then on April 1st, the day of her birthday, early that morning, the doctor came in and they started pushing on my stomach and it was so hard. I couldn't move. They're like, you know what? We need you to have this baby now. If not, there was going to be consequences, because they did an ultrasound and she already had the umbilical cord wrapped around her neck. And it was just so crazy. I didn't know what to do. First time mom. Something I never thought I would ever have to go through. So then I was like, okay, so let's do it then. Let's do it. Like, if this is what we have to do, this is what we're gonna do. Right, so I had her regular. So right when I was pushing her out, I did not hear her first cry, so I was starting to get worried. I looked at my boyfriend and he had like a shock face. He was crying because the baby was here, but he was also shocked because when she came out, she was all purple. She wasn't crying, she wasn't breathing. She saw the doctors patting her to get her to breathe again. They unwrapped that umbilical cord that she apparently did end up having. So they had to unwrap that unwrap it from her neck. So once they did that, they patted her and then she started crying. But then she was also, because she was born early, she was only 4 pounds, she had to stay in the NICU for a whole month. So being a first-time mom and having to leave your child in a hospital without you being there with them for 24 hours, it is upsetting and it's sad, and you don't know if they're going to be getting taken care of well at the hospital that they're at. So I was like, okay, well, she's going to be there for 2 weeks. 2 weeks pass and they say that she's growing, she's drinking, she's doing good, but she's still not ready because she cannot adjust to her temperature on her own without being in the incubator. So she was still on all these IVs. She was swollen from her hand. I just wanted her to come home. I wanted her to get off of all those IVs, medications, everything they were doing to her. I just wanted her off of it. So then that month later passed, we get to take our baby home, and now she's just as healthy as she can ever be.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel.
For my second one, for Hope, she got burned on her stomach and her inner thighs. She was only 6 months. I wanted to shower her. And what ended up happening was that I wanted to shower her in the sink because I would always see my in-law shower our oldest and her in the sink. I'm like, hey, I never showered my oldest in the sink, so why not try it now? Worst mistake I could have ever done. Since then, I've never showered my youngest in the sink. Reason being is, so I showered her in the sink, you know, regular shower, shampoo, or shampooing her hair, talking to her, laughing, her giggling. So it was a good time at the beginning. But when it came to taking her out, it happened quick. So I shut down the cold water first, thinking it was the hot water, and with 6 seconds of that water falling on her stomach, she got burned all from her stomach to her inner thighs. It was red. She was crying. I'm like, oh, what's wrong, baby? Like, why are you crying? And obviously she was 6 months. She couldn't really tell me what was going on. So I'm all patting her. I'm like, oh, she's probably crying because she's cold, or she wants me to change her, or I never thought the worst. So right when I'm petting her down, I see that her stomach and her inner thighs are red, and I'm like, what the is going on? So I ended up taking her to the emergency room. I'm like, my daughter's crying. I took her a bath. I turned off the cold water first, thinking it was a hot water. Now she's all red from her inner thighs and her stomach. I was like, what's going on? I don't know. And as soon as the triage nurse checks us in, they're like, let me see her chest. So I open up, because she was covered in a blanket, because it was cold. It was in February. Yeah, it's not as cold, but it was cold because it had happened at night. So I unwrapped her from her blanket, and she had some big blisters. Like, I can't describe what it was like. I fell, and I couldn't stand seeing that. I felt like I was the worst mom ever. I felt like I failed in life when it came to that. I didn't know what to do. My in-laws were there. I tried holding everything in, but then once the triage nurse saw what she had, she started crying. So then I fell on the floor. It's like, no, like, she's blistered up. What can we do? So then they sent us into a trauma room, and then we had the service agency, I believe it was, and they were like, so who did it? Was it Dad? Who burned her? And I was like, Dad was sleeping. I was taking her a bath, and they were blaming him because he had got to the hospital, woken up. They told him what happened, so he was shocked. His eyes were obviously closed still. He wasn't wide awake because he was sleeping. So then they tried to put the blame all on him, and I'm like, no, it wasn't him. Then they started talking to my in-laws. They started talking to my parents. They're like, so what really happened? So then all that happened, and they ended up rushing us to Las Vegas to the pediatric burn center, because that's the only place they had a burn center for kids. So then we got there, and right away, so we went flying, and obviously in the helicopter, it was like a 30-minute flight, but she was laying down on my chest, and I just didn't know what to do because she was in so much pain. And just seeing her there, and for it being my fault, it hurt me even more that I started crying with her. I was telling her, baby, everything's gonna be fine. We're gonna get through this together. I'm gonna be here. I didn't mean to do this to you. Like, so many emotions, so many mixed feelings. I just didn't know what to do. It was my worst. I don't even know what to say. It was the worst day ever, and it was the worst thing that could have happened to one of my girls. And nobody knows how I still truly feel deep down inside, because every time I see her with her little scar mark, and pray to God that when she gets older, that scar goes away. Because every time I see it, it brings me back to that day when it all started. She's a child, yes. She doesn't know what it is, yes. But me as a mother who saw everything, it hurts. It really does. Nobody knows what it's like until it happens to you. And honestly, a lot of stuff has happened to my girls. We don't want to see our kids suffer no more. We're done seeing them suffer. They've been through so much and we can only do so little for them. So back to the story again. We went to the pediatric hospital. They took her away from me once we got to the hospital because they went to go wrap her with, I'm not sure what it was, but it was some stuff that they stuck onto her stomach, and it would peel off as soon as the skin would start getting better. I don't know how to explain it, what it was. So that's what they were doing, and we were there for a whole week. She was on an IV. She was on all these meds. Just seeing my daughter laying down in that crib, not being able to play with anything, and crying all the time we were there, it hurt me. I believe it or not, I feel like I felt as a mother when it came to that point. But everything happens, right? There's a reason for everything to happen. So then there was they discharged us and we went driving home. So when we put her in the car seat, I didn't even want to button up her belt because then the car seat belt was too tight on her, and she was crying and she was uncomfortable because it was squeezing her where she already had gotten burned. So we would constantly stop on our way back to town, back to Reno. We would stop, do little quick breaks, take her out of her car seat, let her relax, let her stretch, let her do what she needed to do. And till this day, it's like a flashback. I remember everything from the start, from when it happened. I remember everything that happened, and it's still in my head, and I feel like it will never ever leave my head until I physically know that scar, it has gone away from her. But hers was a long journey that I never ever ever want to experience again.
Let's go, girls.
Now, to top it off with my third one, with Grace, babies that I've had, and she was good throughout her whole year, perfect. Nothing would ever like, I felt accomplished as a mom. I was like, yay, like my first daughter, like she's healthy, nothing has happened to her. That was the quickest way to jinx myself from something happening. She was at my mom's house the day this happened to her. I was at work because I would work weekends, and this happened on a weekend at my mom's house. So my mom was watching her, and she was already taking her home because I was already getting out of work, and she was with my sister and my brother-in-law. So the first thing my mom did was she drove to the gas station that was right there by her house, took her down, put her inside the gas station store, and she was yelling for help because she didn't know what was going on either. We didn't know what was going on either. My phone was blowing up when I was at work. I was like, you know what, like, I'm not gonna answer, I'm working. This call can wait. And then they ended up calling my work, and I'm like, okay, now something's going on. Like, I need to stop what I'm doing, and I need to go grab my phone, and I need to go call them. So as soon as I call them, my mom's like, I'm here at the hospital. Grace just had a seizure. We got told that she had a seizure. So in my head, I'm like, what the F? What is going on? So then I tell my manager, I'm like, hey, I gotta go. I'm sorry, but my daughters are first to me. They will always come first before anybody. So then I'm rushing to the hospital. I get to the hospital, I see my baby. She doesn't recognize me. She didn't recognize me. She didn't know who I was. So I was trying to talk to her. I'm like, hey Grace, how are you? I know you're crying. Like, she was crying and she didn't recognize anybody, and she didn't want to be carried. She didn't want nothing. So when I got there, she was still acting the same. She didn't know where she was at. She didn't know who was around her. She didn't know what was going on. So I was like, oh my God, like, what do I do? So then they tell us, hey, so your daughter has seizure. She got a seizure. We can't fully diagnose her with epilepsy or anything like that because it's her first one. She's under the age of 5. I was like, okay, cool. So then we take her home. Everything's going good. The following month, she gets another seizure. And this time, I'm the one who sees it. And her godmother was visiting us. So we were watching a TV show. She was eating the Nutella pretzels. She threw her Nutella, and I looked at her. I'm like, hey, you don't do that. Why are you throwing stuff? And right when I said that, I looked at her, and she started shaking. And I'm like, somebody call the ambulance. She is having another seizure. So then they end up calling the ambulance. They take us back. They're like, we can't diagnose her because she's under the age of 5. And it's only the second one she's had. I'm like, great, okay, so they're not gonna do nothing about it. What am I supposed to do as a mom? So then she got one again the following month. She got these 12 times every month at the ending of the month. When she was in the moment of having that seizure, just watch her roll her eyes back, watch her drool, and watch her shake. That's all I had to do. So throughout the time she was having those seizures, I would just be hugging her. I wouldn't even be hugging her because I couldn't even hug her. So I would just be sitting next to her. I would be sitting close to her and talking to her in her ear, and I'd just be like, baby, you're okay. You're gonna get through this. Just a couple more seconds. We're here. When you wake up, we're gonna be here. But recognize my voice. So when you wake up, you know who I am. That was all. I just needed somebody there when everything was going on with my girls. I felt like I felt at everything with them. Who would have known that being at the age of 23, you could be diagnosed with Bell's palsy? It all started, I was working, and one of the doctors started realizing that one of my eyes wasn't closing all the way. She's like, hey, Beatty, look at me. And I looked at her, and she's like, smile. And I smiled. And she told me, close your eyes. And I closed them. And she's like, hey, you know your eyes ain't closing all the way. You know your mouth, when you smile, it's not a full smile. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm all giggling because obviously I didn't want to believe it. So I'm all giggling. I'm like, oh, well, ha ha ha, I have Bell's palsy, or who knows what could be going on, but I'm just giggling my life away. To me, giggling it makes me feel, I don't worry as much as I do when I'm not. So then I got home. I was like, hey, I called my boyfriend. I was like, hey, the doctor just told me I have Bell's palsy. She told me I have to go to the to emergency or urgent care soon because it leads to a stroke. So then we rushed to the hospital. Still, I'm fine. I'm like, okay, I just can't close my eyes. I can't smile. That's cool. As soon as I get checked in, I'm like, they said, what are you checking in for? And I was like, oh, so I was working and they told me that I might have Bell's palsy because my eye's not closing all the way and my smile isn't full. So then they took me back actually pretty quick and they sat me down. Then the doctor came in and he's all like, he told me the same things that the doctor told me. Close your eyes, smile, squeeze my finger, to see which hand was obviously more weaker. So I did all that, and then he's like, I'm sorry, but you have Bell's palsy. At that point, I dropped whatever was in my head. I stopped giggling, and I looked at my boyfriend, and I started crying. I even looked at the doctor, and I told him, how I'm only 23. How is this possible? It's scary. And till this day, I can't fully close my eye. I can't fully raise my eyebrows. I can't fully smile. I can't even squeeze as tight as I can with my other hand. So, long story short is, I'm guessing everything happens for a reason. Oh, and wait, I ended up calling my mom that same night when I took a bath, because bath is like the calmest thing I could ever do, and it keeps me calm. So I called my mom. I'm in the bath. I'm like crying my eyes out, crying my heart out to her, telling her that why me? Why did God chose to do these 3 different things to me? Alone. With my boyfriend. And I just broke down crying. And till this day, in my heart, in my mind, I can't get over everything that has happened to my girls and everything that has happened to me. But I am so thankful for those who called me the day I couldn't take anything or couldn't control myself because of what happened to me. I'm always going to be here for my family. It's either going to be a difficult and hard road, but we will get through it. I feel like I vented enough to you guys, that I feel like my chest has opened up a little bit more. I feel like I can almost obviously talk to you guys being comfortable. Thank you for watching our channel. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye. Bye. Bye.